scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Like, I'm being so serious. I watched it once and then I went on the ride in Disney World, which was called Snow White's Scary Adventures.
Imagine dropping $330 million on a movie and then acting like it was a group project you didn't want your name on. That's what Disney's doing with the Snow White remake, a film that was meant to revitalize a timeless fairy tale, but instead might end up buried next to the Haunted Mansion reboot. This wasn't a quiet miss, it was a spectacular implosion. We're talking no Dwarfs, a main character who talks about the original like it's a problematic ex, and a studio that's treating its press tour like classified intel. You'd expect Disney to go big with a live-action remake of one of its most iconic stories. Instead, they went silent. And as you'll see, this isn't just a bad movie, it's a slow-motion PR collapse, an identity crisis, and possibly the most expensive attempt at cultural self-sabotage in recent Hollywood history. Let's break down how Disney managed to make the fairest of them all into one of the biggest misfires they've ever funded. Let's start with the part of Snow White that isn't there. The 7 Dwarfs. Remember them? Iconic, beloved, integral to the entire identity of the original film? Gone. Just poof. Instead, we get 7 random, average-height people dressed in vaguely medieval cosplay. They don't even pretend to be dwarfs. They look like they wandered off the set of a Hallmark time travel rom-com. But don't worry. Disney had a reason. Apparently, the dwarfs were considered too stereotypical. So, in their place, we now have what appears to be a diversity brochure brought to life. Instead, Disney replaced them with 7 average-height random diverse individuals who look like they got lost on their way to a Coachella after-party. Snow White just destroyed Disney's entire reputation. Now, you might think this was just an artistic choice, a reimagining, but no, it was actually worse. By erasing the dwarfs entirely, Disney also erased a massive opportunity for actual little people actors, roles that they rely on because, surprise, the industry doesn't exactly hand them out like candy. And the kicker? The community Disney supposedly tried to protect found the change more offensive. That's right, the very group they were trying to not stereotype ended up publicly calling them out for doing the exact opposite. It's like trying to fix a leaky faucet by ripping out all the plumbing. If axing the dwarfs didn't kill the buzz, don't worry. Rachel Zegler was there to finish the job. Cast as Snow White herself, Zegler made headlines not for hyping up the film, but for systematically dismantling its appeal in every interview. She trashed the original 1937 classic, calling it weird, outdated, and sexist, and proudly declared that her version of Snow White wasn't going to need a prince.
You know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There is a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
Instead of promoting the film, she trashed the original, calling it weird, outdated, and sexist. Snow White just destroyed Disney's entire reputation. Now, there's something painfully ironic about signing up to play one of Disney's most iconic characters, and then immediately roasting the film that made the role famous. It's like starring in a Spider-Man reboot and announcing you don't believe in webs. Naturally, longtime Disney fans didn't take that well. In fact, they felt insulted. Like Rachel wasn't just rejecting the old movie, but rejecting them. She alienated the very audience this movie needed to survive. And just when you think it couldn't get more uncomfortable, here comes the political grenade. Zegler is vocally pro-Palestine. Her co-star Gal Gadot, former Israeli soldier and firmly pro-Israel. So naturally, Disney cast 2 people from opposing sides of an active geopolitical conflict in the same movie and expected everything to go smoothly. Rachel is pro-Palestine. Gal is pro-Israel. They appeared on stage at the Oscars and looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. Snow White just destroyed Disney's entire reputation. Not awkward at all. Not. Now, let's talk about the trailer, or as some fans call it, the moment they officially gave up hope. It opens with CGI so uncanny it makes the Polar Express look like a documentary. Snow White's face has been smoothed into a glossy plastic blur, and her 7 new companions look like they were found on Fiverr and photoshopped in last minute. Instead of excitement, audiences responded with a resounding, "Wait, this is real?" The CGI looks awful, Snow White's face is weirdly smoothed out, and the 7 magical companions look like they were hired off Craigslist. Snow White just destroyed Disney's entire reputation. Normally, when Disney drops a trailer, it sparks a cultural moment. Think fan theories, frame-by-frame breakdowns, 20-minute reaction videos from people named something like MovieMat34. But for Snow White, crickets. And the worst part? Disney didn't even try to fight back. There was no PR blitz, no damage control. just silence. And that silence spoke volumes. You know it's bad when the biggest entertainment brand on earth is afraid to promote its own movie. Disney usually rolls out the red carpet, literally. They host global premieres, early screenings, celebrity interviews, and TikTok dance challenges nobody asked for. But with Snow White, nothing. The London premiere was either quietly canceled or scaled down so hard it may as well have been a private screening in someone's basement. Disney canceled or massively scaled down the film's London premiere. Let's be real, Disney doesn't cancel premieres unless there's something really wrong. Snow White just destroyed Disney's entire reputation, and instead of leaning into a Western press tour, Disney flew the cast to Japan, which, if you know anything about press strategy, basically screams, please don't ask them any real questions. Japanese media is known for being polite and apolitical, so it's the perfect place to dodge questions about dwarfs, geopolitics, and why this entire movie feels like a fever dream. So here we are, a $330 million movie that Disney doesn't want to talk about, a lead actress who wants to rewrite the script mid-interview, and a PR strategy built entirely on hoping no one asks too many questions. And we're just getting started. You know how confident studios usually are about big-budget blockbusters? Weeks, sometimes months, of pre-sale hype. Teasers, countdowns, behind-the-scenes featurettes, it's all about building momentum. But Snow White, they didn't even bother. Tickets only went on sale 11 days before release. That's not late, that's last resort energy. They only started selling tickets 11 days before release. Snow White was more of a, let's wait till the last minute and hope for the best. Snow White just destroyed Disney's entire reputation. Compare that to The Little Mermaid, which had a month of pre-sales. Or Barbie, which had 2. Disney knew what they had, and they knew audiences weren't going to love it. So instead of trying to win them over, they braced for impact. Let the premiere pass quietly. Let the backlash die down. Hope that maybe somehow some miracle would save them. Projected to open with a painfully average $50 million against a monstrous $330 million budget, Snow White is less of a box office hit and more of a financial cautionary tale. And here's the really fun part. Some insiders think Disney wants it to fail, that if this movie belly flops hard enough, they'll finally have an excuse to slam the brakes on live-action remakes for good. Some people believe Disney actually wants this movie to fail. If it flops hard enough, they'll finally have an excuse to stop making live-action remakes. Snow White just destroyed Disney's entire reputation. Whether or not that's true, one thing is certain. You don't sell tickets 11 days before opening weekend unless you're trying to bury the evidence before the body's cold. And so we arrive at the bitter happily never after. Snow White, once the jewel in Disney's crown, now reemerges as a tone-deaf, low-energy misfire no one seems proud of. It's a reboot without a soul, a heroine without charm, and a studio without a clue. What started as a modern reimagining became a corporate crisis, a $330 million monument to how not to adapt a classic. Snow White isn't even a movie anymore. It's a perfect example of how to ruin a billion-dollar franchise in record time. Snow White just destroyed Disney's entire reputation. Disney used to be the gold standard. Now, they're playing defense on a film they funded, filmed, and fumbled all on their own. And the worst part is, they probably saw it coming. Because when your lead trashes the original, your dwarfs vanish into thin air, your trailer bombs, your press tour dissolves, and your fans bail before the premiere. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to admit the fairy tale's over.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Starring in a $370 million Disney movie used to come with certain expectations. Fame, applause, maybe even a few award nominations. But Rachel Zegler managed to unlock a new achievement, becoming the lead in the most awkward box office faceplant Disney's had in years. What should have been a fairy tale ending has spiraled into an uncomfortable lesson in Hollywood misfires, bad PR, and the perils of forgetting your audience while promoting a children's movie. This isn't just about a film that didn't work. It's about a star who managed to turn an already shaky reboot into the cinematic equivalent of stepping on a rake. Repeatedly. Disney pulled out all the stops for this one. A budget nearing $400 million, global marketing, and the promise of a reimagined classic. They took a timeless story and tried to retrofit it for a TikTok generation, without checking if anyone asked for that. And the result? An opening weekend haul of $43 million. By weekend 2, it crashed to $14.2 million, a drop steeper than the Queen's fall off a cliff. You know it's bad when entire theaters start looking like vacant Airbnb listings. People weren't just skipping the movie, they were posting photos of completely empty rows as if trying to warn others like a cinematic ghost town. And just in case that wasn't enough salt in the popcorn, Snow White's IMDb score nosedived to a brutal 1.5. For reference, that's below Cats, not the animal, the movie. Disney has had flops before, but this one came wrapped in satin and dipped in press tour controversy. When your $370 million gamble gets outpaced by movies with half the budget and none of the palace drama, it starts to feel less like an experiment and more like a warning label. Reboots may cause nausea and career turbulence. If Snow White had a villain in this retelling, it wasn't the evil queen. It was the lead actress's press appearances. Rachel Zegler didn't just distance herself from the original film, she launched a full Scorched Earth campaign against it.
It's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. There's a big focus on her love story. With a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
According to her, the 1937 classic was weird. The prince was a stalker, and Snow White herself? Basically a damsel in distress in dire need of a feminist rewrite. Not that anyone asked for it. And look, it's fine to modernize a fairy tale. It's even fine to critique the source material. But doing it with the energy of someone forced to promote a group project they didn't believe in? Not the vibe. Worse, Zegler managed to alienate large swaths of the audience by dragging the original while simultaneously telling certain groups to save their money and not watch. Now that's one way to ensure low ticket sales. Personally disinviting your paying customers. It takes a special kind of press tour to turn public anticipation into active boycott. Zegler wasn't just promoting a film. She was holding a public TED Talk on how not to do PR 101. And the irony? Her most viral moments weren't scenes from the movie, they were interviews of her explaining why she kind of wished the movie was different. And then there's the tension behind the scenes. Just when you thought the drama might plateau, enter Gal Gadot, playing the evil queen, and allegedly stepping into real-life villain territory. Zegler, according to some reports, made several passive-aggressive remarks, including one where she essentially dismissed Gadot as a pageant queen in costume. But the moment that lit up social media came when Zegler posted a thank you message to the cast and crew, conspicuously leaving out Gal. It was so glaring, it felt like a deliberate swipe. And when you're co-starring with someone who played Wonder Woman, skipping them in your gratitude list is brave? Or maybe just unwise.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Like, I'm being so serious. I watched it once and then I went on the ride in Disney World, which was called Snow White's Scary Adventures.
The alleged feud became so intense that Disney reportedly had to increase security for Gal Gadot. Because nothing says magical family film like behind-the-scenes tension, so spicy it needs a bodyguard. And look, maybe it was all a coincidence. Maybe it was just a PR misunderstanding. Or maybe, just maybe, someone forgot that shade doesn't go with tiaras. With the movie tanking and interviews trending for all the wrong reasons, Disney seemed to realize they weren't just selling a film anymore, they were fighting off a PR wildfire. Their response: assigning Rachel Zegler a professional social media manager. Because when your lead actor starts going viral more for off-screen drama than actual acting, you don't need a PR team, you need a crisis hotline. And then came the apology. Or, well, the thing that resembled an apology. It felt like it had been drafted by Disney Legal, and had edited by PR and approved by someone who hadn't actually watched the interviews.
You know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
Fans immediately picked up on the fact that it read more like damage control than a genuine "my bad." But the real plot twist? The career consequences. Zegler was allegedly lined up to voice a character in Toy Story 5. Until she wasn't. Her name reportedly vanished from a potential Pirates reboot. A planned horror trilogy? Suddenly not so loud about it anymore, studios weren't just backing away. They were pulling a full Disney Vault move. Lock it up, throw away the key, and pretend it never existed. In Hollywood, one bad PR cycle might be survivable, but when your brand becomes the girl who tanked Disney, you're no longer a risk. You're a cautionary tale. It's not that studios are being petty, They're just allergic to box office kryptonite. By this point, the story had taken on a life of its own. Snow White wasn't just a flop, it became internet shorthand for every misguided reboot and tone-deaf PR tour rolled into one. People weren't quoting lines from the movie, they were quoting Rachel Zegler interviews like they were stand-up routines. Her declaration that the role was life-changing got memed into oblivion. Sure, it changed her life, just maybe not in the fairy tale direction she was expecting. It became a paradox. The more she explained her choices, the more confused everyone got. Even fans who wanted to defend her found themselves quietly muting notifications. There's a difference between being outspoken and being out of touch. Zegler didn't just toe the line, she tap-danced past it in ruby red boots with jazz hands. And in doing so, she turned Snow White from a modern reimagining into a modern meme. Look, Hollywood is all about comebacks. If Robert Downey Jr. can go from tabloid disaster to Tony Stark, there's always hope. And maybe Rachel Zegler will find her footing again, preferably in roles where the press tour doesn't require a fire extinguisher. But let's be honest, this wasn't just a misstep. It was a masterclass in how to alienate your base, upset your co-stars, and confuse your audience in record time. All while wearing the crown of a character literally named after innocence. So what do you think? Was this just a rocky chapter in a rising star's career? Or has Rachel Zegler officially been typecast as the cautionary tale of 2025? Let us know below. Because in today's fairy tales, the dragons aren't just in the story. Sometimes they're the ones promoting the movie.